There's a praise. I was going to sing a song, but I'm kind of shy. But I'm going to sing it anyway because my daughter said you should sing the song. But we are on Nehemiah 12. We are on Nehemiah 12. And of course, as always, I am excited about the word today. This one's really easy. It's a really easy read. It's a really easy word. For me, it is, as we say, it is what it is, right? It is what it is. I would say roll call. This is a roll call. It was a generational roll call of the priests and the Levites. And so as I was going, as I was reading it, God laid on my heart that song, praises the way I give thanks. And so it's just, I don't even want to sing it. Maybe I'll sing it at the end. But generational roll call, okay? It's the generational roll call, and we are in chapter 12 of Nehemiah. And as I was in chapter 12, the first verse says, "Now these are the priests and the Levites who came up with Zerubbabel." What that means is these are the priests and the Levites who came with Zerubbabel from the first exile. Okay, this is the time when they were all pushed out the first time. They do a whole roll call of the people who returned, the priests and the Levites, the servants and those who interceded with us for God, those who came back. As I was reading this and God began to drop in my spirit, we have to go back and acknowledge those who paved the way. Sometimes people tell us, the past is behind me. No, you should not forget where you come from. And so God began to reveal to me that I might not have gone through what they went through. I might not have seen what my ancestors have seen, but it has impacted my life. And that's without any regards of me ever having to experience the things that they experienced. And so when we think about this life that we're living right now, we're literally, and I tell my little sister, she's in Guam, we're in Texas. I think we're 16 hours apart. And I always tell her, I'm living in your yesterday. And so she's living in my future. And every single day, it is alleviating or elevating to understand or to see how God has shown me that I'm literally living in the past of someone else. And that person being my sister ultimately. But I'm living in her past. I'm living in her yesterday. So Nehemiah, again, we go back to chapter 11. Nehemiah was not mentioned in chapter 11. However, when we get to chapter 12, you see him listing people that were not mentioned as well. And he's listing all of these Levites and all of these priests who helped to build and rebuild. And maybe they didn't do anything with the temple walls and with the temple at that time. But if it wasn't for them being in exile, if it wasn't for their stories going forth, if it wasn't for them telling their story. See, we've had so many people that stopped telling their story because they're embarrassed or because of the mistakes they made. And so now they're no longer sharing the story, and we have nothing to move on to our children. We have to go back and begin to find those stories and begin to list the names in the scroll of those who have paved the way for us. The part that stands out to me is when I got to verse 31. And so it's just a list of names. I'm not jumping around by any means, but it's a list of names. And they're listing all of these priests and these Levites. And then we get to chapter or verse 27. And it says, "Now at the dedication of the wall of Jerusalem, they sought out the Levites and all of their places to bring them to Jerusalem to celebrate the dedication with gladness, both with thanksgiving and singing with cymbals and string instruments and harps." Celebrating. See, the walls have been built and now we celebrate. Why do we celebrate? Because we're looking back at our past and we're looking at how far we have come. And so when we're looking at this, it then says that Nehemiah appointed two large choirs. This is verse 31. One went to the right towards the refuse wall, and the other group, the Thanksgiving choir, went the opposite way. So we have the right and we have the left. They went the opposite way. And behind them, all of these people followed. And so you have two groups that are leading. I said two. This is four. 1, 2, 3, 4. But we have two groups that are leading. And they're all following behind one another. And as they begin to follow behind, some of them go to the staircase. And I'm just going to read it says. "By the fountains of the gate in front of them, they went up the stairs of the city of David." David ultimately built his city. He built it from the ground up. He had to restore all of this. And so the stairways of the walls beyond the house of David, And so when you think about everything that David set into place, everything even the fornication, when you think about everything that was set into place behind what David did, behind David and all of his children, the things that were set into place, it says that we have gone beyond that. We have gone beyond the house of David. So you can live beyond the fornication. You can live beyond the murder spirit. You can live beyond that mentality of this brother rape, beyond the things that your family has done. You live beyond the things that your family has done. And so when I think about David, when I think about David going beyond David's house, God began to show me all of the things that David went through, all of the things that his children went through. They all dwelled in the same house. And God shows us that we can live beyond where we come from. We can go beyond where we have come from. But regardless of whether you went with the group that went right or you went with the group that went left, guess what they all did? They all met in the middle. They all met back in the middle and they began to celebrate. And so it says in verse 40, so the two Thanksgiving choirs stood in the house of God. Where did they find, what was their final meeting place? In the house of God. Their final meeting place was in the temple. Sometimes we go separate routes, but we end back up together, and it is okay. We learned in chapter 11 that it's okay if you only get to choose one and the other 9 have to live elsewhere. But when you come back to the end, if everybody is set for their purpose, if everybody operates in obedience, then eventually we will come back together and we will meet in the house of God. Likewise, I, on the half of the rulers with me, and half of the rulers with me, and the priests, we all were there as well. So even those who didn't travel with you, they're going to meet you there. Maybe they didn't go right. Maybe they didn't go left. Maybe they went on ahead without you. But if you get back on the right path, you will all make it to the same destination. Here's verse 43. And this is why this song that I might sing resonates in my spirit. And it says, also, the day they offered great sacrifices and rejoice, for God had made them rejoice with the great joy. The women of the children also rejoiced, so that the joy of Jerusalem was heard afar off. And so the song is, there's a praise on the inside that I can't keep to myself. A holler raising up from the depths of my soul. So excuse me if I seem a little giddy or maybe even strange, but praise is the way I say things. And I get nervous. But when we think about that song, we have to praise. We have to give God the praise. We have to send chaos and confusion into the enemy's camp and stop allowing him to confuse us if we flood our minds with praise and worship. It was music that carried them through. It was music that helped them build the temple. It was music that helped them rebuild the walls. It is music. It is being able to recite hymns. It is being able to go forward and not allow the things that are tormenting your mind to overpower the words and the gospel and the hymns that God has already revealed to you. And so as that, the next line of that song, well, when he ad-libs, is, I think it's like, excuse me, I sometimes get a little bubbly and I just got to shout it out. And so that's me. When I'm going through things, I just begin to shout it out. But the thing is that we try to celebrate on our own, because so often we go through situations and we feel the need to isolate ourselves because it makes things easier. And God is saying, no, do a roll call. Call back the people that took you there and make sure that you remember them. So as you keep moving, even if they fell off, even if they passed away, even if they ended up back in prison. See, it says here that we stopped by the prison. They stopped by the prison. You might have to go back and visit the prison sometimes. But God says, make sure you make it to the end. Make sure you make it back to my house. Make sure you get back to my temple and you give me the praise. You rejoice. Your children, your women, they rejoice because God is faithful. Not because you were faithful, but because God is faithful. You may have gone astray, but we have to sing louder. We have to, the way that I sing and the way that I shout and the way that I have been told to smile today. You're never fully dressed without a smile. You got to smile. You got to praise your way through it. Don't nobody want nothing that looks miserable. So if people are running from you, it's because you don't look friendly. You're not intimidating. You just don't look friendly. And so I ask that this word blesses you and keeps you. And I hope that God makes his face shine upon you and give you peace. And I know as we get into this last chapter, we get into the last chapter, chapter 13. I'm asking that God continues to show us everything that we have seen from Nehemiah, and he continues to help us to not only be readers and hearers of the word, but doers, that we can live out and we can rebuild and reconstruct and tear down and pull up things from rubbish and rejoice because it is all built. It's hard to rejoice in the midst of it, but knowing that it will be finished, it is time to rejoice. It is going to be, it has to be done. He tells us you're going to go back and see, you're going to go through, you're going to go beyond the house of David. We are living beyond the house of David and everything he did, even though God still calls him great. We're living beyond the things that he did, beyond what your daddy did, your mama did, your brothers did, your sisters did. You're even living beyond your teachers and whatever they put in your life. But we have to live through it, grow through it, get through it so you can celebrate. So I bless you. I bless you. I bless you. I declare and I decree no backlash and no retaliation on the word and the wisdom that you have received on today. Love you all much. Mwah.